Good afternoon, friends. It's the 2 o'clock hour. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here for our daily coronavirus update, what the status of the virus and some of the other related issues are. It is Friday, June 5th, and as we've tried to do every day, either by being out in the field or here in the county office building, we've invited the mayor of a city or a village or the town supervisor of one of our communities to join us and talk a little bit about what's happening in their community. There are 45 municipalities in Westchester County, some combination of cities, villages, and towns, and in some cases there's some overlap and there are names, if you're not familiar with it, that sound close together but have some different jurisdictions. Today we've invited the supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck, Nancy Seligson, to join us. For those who may not be familiar, the town of Mamaroneck includes all of the village of Larchmont, the larger portion of the village of Mamaroneck, but not all of the village of Mamaroneck, and then a significant portion of the community that is in the unincorporated section of Mamaroneck town. So as a town supervisor, Supervisor Seligson has a government that delivers basic services to a significant number of residents, and then at the same time in the two villages provides certain ancillary services that go along with the villages. It sounds complicated. It is complicated, but I've known Nancy for a long, long time. She's a real leader. She served on the council before becoming town supervisor, and she has a long involvement in environmental issues, very successfully so, prior to and including her service in public office. So I introduce Town Supervisor Nancy Seligson to get a little update on the town of Mamaroneck. Madam Supervisor.
Thank you, George Latimer. I really appreciate this opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be here. But he is right. It is a confusing municipal jurisdictional situation, and don't feel bad if you don't understand it, because I think most of our residents have a difficult time with it, too. We have done pretty well in the town of Mamaroneck during this coronavirus. We have kept the government running. Of course, we are essential services because we provide police, fire, ambulance, and sanitation services to our residents, and those things are essential services. We were able to take our employee staff and split them up so that they worked on different days and actually staggered times for them as well so that we could keep them as safe as possible, and hopefully if someone got sick, they wouldn't be infecting everyone else. I'm going to knock on wood and say we've been very lucky. We've only had a few staff people who became ill, and everyone's done fine, which is great. Of course, it's difficult for everyone, residents and elected officials and kids and parents and everyone during this time. But one of the great things we've seen in our community is folks coming together and helping others. As everyone knows, there's been a large increase in those in need, especially for food. And we have the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force in our community. And Malcolm Froman, who's a trustee in the village of Larchmont, runs that. And they have been doing weekly food distributions at the Mamaroneck Avenue School for up to 600, 700, and 800 families. So it's a very large increase in food distribution, and we have the good fortune of having lots of volunteers and lots of donations to make that happen. So I congratulate them for the work they're doing, thank them for the work they're doing, and I feel proud that our community has come together to do that. We also have been looking at how are we going to run our programs going forward. We don't want to delay them indefinitely, but we can't go forward with them as we have known. So our formal summer camps have been canceled, but we are exploring alternate programming for kids for this summer, shorter programs with less kids. We are hoping to open the Hammocks Pool, which is a big recreational asset in our community. We are going to have to do that differently as well. We're looking at possibly a reservation system and, of course, social distancing and wearing masks when you're not in the pool. But I am thankful that our staff has been looking at it in creative ways and trying to figure out how we can provide programming and recreational opportunities for our residents. One of the nice things about this time has been to see families walking together, riding bicycles together, using the community, enjoying the community more than usual. and that has been a nice sight. And I think that people are experiencing the community in a different way. But of course, we are all looking forward to reopening and resuming life a little more normally. But I think that we are all wary of doing it and expect to be doing it with changes. So I constantly remind our residents and constituents to wear masks and make sure that they do not socially gather at this time, but when they're in public, to please wear a mask if you're going to be within 6 feet of other people. I want to thank the county, and especially County Executive George Latimer and his staff, for all the great work they've done in helping the municipalities through this crisis. We have county calls with the county and his staff. We started with 3 times a week. Now we're down to 2 times a week. That shows you that we're making improvements. But it's very, very helpful because it allows us to share information, get the latest information, get guidance, and really feel supported during this time. The county supported us with providing personal protective equipment in masks and sanitizer. All of those things are very, very important to make everyone feel safe. And we've been able to distribute masks to our residents in the town of Mamaroneck, and I know that they really appreciate it. For the time being, our town hall is closed. It's only open by appointment, but we do have our staff working, and it has been working very well. So I'm happy about that. We also want to thank our first responders because it's certainly been a trying time for them. Fire, police, and ambulance workers have all done a great job. Our fire department is now doing drive-by birthday visits, and they did 58 visits last month, which is a very large amount, and it is a really popular program in our community, bringing a lot of joy to kids and their parents. That's the kind of thing that I really appreciate about our community, and especially our firefighters. So we're looking forward to summer. It is going to be a different kind of summer. And right now, with all the incredible turmoil and upset over the murder of George Floyd, our community has been very active in wanting to do something to commemorate that as well. We have a community-wide gathering planned next Wednesday where we will gather for racial justice and equality in memory of George Floyd. We'll be meeting in Harbor Island Park, and we'll have community speakers and representatives from the clergy. We also know that some students have organized a small march this afternoon for the same purposes, and I applaud everyone for wanting to take this time and face these very, very difficult issues and to look at what we can do to really change the systems that create these situations and really encourage and support all of our residents all the time equally, regardless of age, race, gender, sexual identity, any kind of differences. Everyone deserves to be treated equally. And we are coming together for that, and our police are trained to do that as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the town of Mamaroneck. When George mentioned that there's 45 municipalities in the county, of course, I wanted to scream out that ours is the best, but I know that everyone feels that way about their municipality. But it is a wonderful community, and we are getting through this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Supervisor Nancy Seligson from the town of Mamaroneck. We appreciate you being with us here today. We'll see you at 5:30 this evening so that we can join in that community rally. I want to point out that we've made a series of doing this with various elected officials, the mayor of Mount Kisco, supervisor of Yorktown, mayor of Mount Vernon, mayor of Yonkers, mayor of Rybrook Village, mayor of Portchester Village, mayor of New Rochelle, and now the town supervisor of Mamaroneck Town. And we intend to continue this through all of the different municipalities. I've made it a very important part of our administration to have a good, strong working relationship with the towns, the cities, and the villages to work as colleagues and friends and partners, not with any sense of superiority. I've had the chance to serve at different levels of government, myself in the state legislature as well as in the county legislature and local government. And one of the things I think that most people find very objectionable is when they see one level of government fighting with another level of government. They're protecting corporate interests. There are certain things that do create conflict in a free democracy, and that's fine. The ability to disagree is important, and to talk about those disagreements. And then ultimately, if it's adjudicated or resolved in some fashion and somebody's successful, the other person isn't, that you still maintain a relationship between the individuals to accomplish the things we have to. And so we stand with the town, we stand with the villages and the cities, and hopefully that becomes more of a model, because we're going to need cooperation, obviously from the state level and from the federal level, to do the things that we need to do as a county government. And I think if we want to have a certain relationship with the federal government, and to the extent we do with the state, we have to reflect that behavior in the way we deal with towns, villages, and cities. So once again, Nancy, thank you for being with us. And for anybody who might be tuning in today just to see Nancy in the town of Mamaroneck, we hope that if you have time, if you're home, not yet back to work or working, and you take a break, that you'll see some of the other communities around the county. So as we talk about what's happening in Hastings-on-the-Hudson, we talk about what's happening in Lewisboro, we talk about what's happening in the city of Peekskill, there's an understanding that we're all in this together. Everything that we're facing right now, the public health outbreak of the virus, which is a major policy issue, the economic issues that are happening to individuals and businesses and not-for-profit organizations, religious institutions, and governments, that we share in that economic difficulty, and we try to work through it together. Now the issue of social justice, and to try to maintain civil agreement and comity at the same time that we have people speaking out. And I do want to say that I've been involved in attending a number of different events over the last week, 2 weeks actually, in Westchester County. And I'm very proud to say that the people of Westchester County who have come out to express their feelings about what happened in Minneapolis and the more general issue of how blacks are treated in this country have, to an individual, protested peacefully. They have rallied with enthusiasm, a little loud, but with discipline, and there has been no example of looting. There's been no example of destruction of private property here in Westchester County. I don't take any credit for that. I think that's a statement about the residents of Westchester County, that they understand how to express a point of view in the civic arena, and at the same time show the respect necessary. And I think at the same time, I want to show credit to the police organizations of Westchester County, not only our county police, but the municipal police departments that I've seen all over the county. They have ensured security, but at the same time, they've interacted appropriately with those people there to protest. I've seen not even one example of a conflict on the perimeters of an event between someone who may be there providing security and the police. I think we understand that what happened in Minneapolis and what happened in other places, in Louisville, Kentucky, with Breonna Taylor, and what may have happened in other parts of this country. Those represent the exceptional behavior of those that did not behave properly. And the vast majority of men and women in law enforcement understand exactly how to help protect us and to do the right thing. But we need to have structures to ensure so that's 100% and not just a high percentage of individuals. And we have to work through this together. So I am proud of the fact that here in Westchester County, perhaps not everywhere, but here in Westchester County, our local police and our local residents have gotten along very well together. And I look forward for continued peaceful actions wherever those may occur in our county. Some of the statistics on COVID for each day, the numbers that we have through today, Friday, June 5th, our testing has now reached 176,084 Westchester residents that have been tested for COVID. Remember that our population, we estimate to be 1 million people. Out of 1 million people, 176,000 people have been tested in this county. That percentage, I say it every day, it's worth mentioning every day, is the highest percentage per capita of any jurisdiction in the Northeast. And if there's a county somewhere out in the West that's done more than that, it's because they have a smaller base of population. But the public health professionals tell us that one of the key tools we have until we get a vaccine and an antiviral is to make sure that we test individuals, identify them, isolate them if they have the disease. And what we're finding is that out of these people that we're testing now, we're approaching the point at which 80% of the people are testing negative for COVID, 20% positive. And that is a good sign. That is a sign of the diminution, at least at this moment in time, of the spread of the disease. And it does mean that we're wearing masks, which is an uncomfortable reality. We don't normally do that in our American society. We're doing it now because there's a pandemic, not to make a statement of any sort. The social distancing, which is odd. You see a friend of long standing and you bump elbows, which is odd. But we do that which is necessary. And in so doing, we have had an impact of containing the spread. Here in Westchester County, that spread has been reduced over a significant period of time. We currently now have 1,078 active cases of COVID. That's down a few from yesterday, which was down a few from the day before. We at one point, as I often mention, had between 11,000 and 12,000 active cases of COVID, people that were tested positive and had not cleared the 2-week period of incubation. Now we're down to 1,000 people that we have tested who tested positive who are still outside of the full incubation period, and that is a very good sign. Our hospitalization numbers now hover about 200 people hospitalized still for COVID. That number has decreased day after day after day. At one point, that number was 1,200 people 8 weeks ago when we were at our contagion peak, and that number continues to drop. We have continued to have deaths in the county. The overnight fatality number continues to be low. Last night, we lost 4 of our neighbors to COVID, and every death is a tragedy. In that particular family, it's a horrific thing to accept. But over the last week, we've averaged about 3.5 deaths a night. As many deaths as that is, that compares to 45 deaths a night, 50 deaths a night. We had a night of 72 deaths in one night 8 weeks ago in Westchester County. The mortuary system, the funeral parlors, the cemeteries, and the places where bodies could be cremated could not handle that demand. And we had to go through the horrific reality of fatality management, trying to have refrigeration to maintain those deceased until they could be properly given a proper burial and so forth. So it was a terrible portion of this pandemic as it hit Westchester County. Anybody who tells me, oh, it's not as bad, they're telling us this on TV, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're talking out of ideology. They're talking out of anger or their philosophy. They're not talking out of real world. In the real world, we lost 75 people one night earlier this spring. People who were alive, who died in a fairly short period of time. And for those who suffer and die from this disease, it is a terrible way to go. This is not a quick, quiet, pleasant departure from this earth. It's painful. You see somebody gasping for breath. The stories, if you listen to any of the stories you've heard from an emergency room nurse or doctor, someone who is providing point of illness care, risking contagion themselves, the stories they tell about what happens to those for whom the COVID affects them to the point of death is really, stirringly bad. So we're pleased that we're moving in the right direction, that the active number of cases are dropping, the number of hospitalizations are dropping, and the number of overnight deaths are dropping. And I hope I can stand at this podium in the next day or two and say we lost no one last night, that there were no deaths to COVID. That would be the best hope that I would have. Within the structure of government, I repeat what you've heard before, Governor Cuomo has used his executive authority to govern which businesses and activities should be closed statewide across New York and which ones should remain open. Governors of state have that ultimate executive authority that supersedes the executive authority of a county executive, a town supervisor, mayor of a city or village. Absent the governor doing that, then the other levels of government executives could also exert some of that authority. But in order to have homogeneity in policy across the state, Governor Cuomo announced through a series of executive orders that he would shut down certain things, that he would also lay out the game plan by which those things could open. And there are certain things that fell within the authority of the governor and some that he did not opine on, leaving us the ability to make certain decisions. As county executive, one of the areas that was left to my discretion is the management of our parks and recreation system. And as the supervisor just said a few minutes ago when she talked about Hammock's Pool, which is a great asset in the town of Mamaroneck, we in Westchester County government have 55 parks spread out all over the county of all different sort. We have nature centers, we have biking trails, we have hiking trails, we have areas where people can take mountain bikes. We have, kiddie playground areas in different places. We have soccer field, we have baseball fields, we have a host of different things. Of course, we have the very unique asset of an amusement park, and we also have 6 golf courses and 5 pools. Over the course of these last 3 months, given the authority that we have, that I have directly as county executive during my tenure, we made a decision to try to identify which recreational facilities we could keep open and which recreational facilities we would have to close, totally based on whether or not we could maintain social distancing and whether or not we could honestly have that activity happen and not increase the spread of the disease. And every decision has a little controversy to it. You go to Facebook and somebody always has something negative to say. It's part of the business. Up to a point, you accept it. At some point, if it goes a little beyond the bounds of civility, then you respond back in kind. But by and large, we've been able to successfully open our various golf courses with no difficulty, continued reduction in the spread of the disease. We started opening Bicycle Sunday in the first weekend of May, and it has had no impact on the reduction of the spread. And 2 weekends ago, we opened up 2 of our beaches. We've lost Glen Island as a beach, which is the largest of our beaches, because we turned over the Glen Island complex to the state to do testing. It was the largest concentrated driving area that we could allow. That Glen Island Center has tested, just thousands, tens of thousands of people, and that's one of the reasons why we have this high testing numbers we have, because of the Glen Island facility. But we've lost it as a place for beachfront. So we opened 2 weeks ago Playland Beach and Croton Point Park Beach. We had capacity requirements on it, certain management operational requirements on it, but we opened the beaches so people who were sheltering in place could go and, under the right set of circumstances, enjoy the water, enjoy the sand. We're not looking to shut the society down just to shut it down. We shut it down insofar as we need to control the spread. And as we control the spread better, the society naturally reopens. And with those beaches, we announced yesterday that we intend now to open 4 of the 5 public pools in Westchester County. That will begin on a weekend, 3 weekends from this. It'll be the weekend of the 26th of June, in which we'll open the Saxon Woods Pool Complex, which borders the town of Mamaroneck. Saxon Woods, by the way, is a large county recreational facility that straddles 4 communities. There's a Mamaroneck, a Scarsdale, a White Plains, and a Harrison presence for Saxon Woods. There's an entrance to hiking trails through Harrison that does wind its way through the town of Mamaroneck. There's an entrance in Scarsdale for a golf course, and there's an entrance also on Mamaroneck Avenue on the other side of the Hutchinson River Parkway that enters into a complex where there's miniature golf, swimming pool complex, soccer field, and a major parking area. So the Saxon Woods Pool Complex, which is access to the White Plains portion of the park, will open 3 weeks from this weekend, as will the Sprain Ridge Pools, which are located on Jackson Avenue, right on the border of Yonkers, just adjacent to Hastings in the town of Greenburgh. There we had pools that we reconstructed in 2018 after they were closed for 8 years, the better part of 8 years. We reconstructed and opened them last year in 2019. Now with COVID, we had to make sure we have an operational game plan where we can open it safely, the very challenge that the supervisor and her recreation professionals have with hummocks. And the same is true for all sorts of pools all across the area. City of Rye has Rye Golf Club. They have a public pool. There's others, an example, in other communities. So we have determined that in 3 weeks, those 2 pools will open. Then in 4 weeks, which will be the 4th of July weekend, Friday, July 3rd, we will be opening pools in Wilson Woods in Mount Vernon and Tibbicks Brook, which is also in Yonkers, in the southern central part of Yonkers, quite a bit of distance from Sprain Ridge, and able to accommodate those 4 corners of the county: Saxon Woods, Wilson Woods, Sprain Ridge, and Tibbetts. Now, the 5th pool in our system is the Playland Pool, which is located as you enter Playland from the Playland Parkway side. That pool will not open this year. There are 2 reasons for it. The official overarching reason is that the state of New York, when giving us the authority to open pools, indicated that any pool that was in proximity to a beach could not open. They didn't want the concentration of additional people that could happen by having both a pool and a beach complex. So we have a beach open at Playland. That provides the water recreation. So on that basis, the pool is closed. But we had already in place a plan that really precedes my tenure as county executive to reconstruct the pool and to reconfigure it into more of a pool that could accommodate young children as well as more experienced older swimmers. And that reconstruction project, we're now looking at trying to move up the schedule for it. Under normal circumstances, we would have had Playland Pool open this year, close it at the end of the season at Labor Day, start the reconstruction, and race against the deadline to have it open by June of next year. Now we're in a position, if we can move up, we have to go through bidding processes, a whole public process before you can do something much more complicated for those of us who do it than if you were doing this as a private company or as a private citizen. But the Playland Pool, we're going to see if we can move up the reconstruction project, so we're sure that we can have it done in time for the 2021 season. And we're hopeful that 2021 is going to be, a year that starts out very differently than this year has turned into, and hopefully that'll be open. But the Playland Pool will not open. Now, those announcements I made yesterday. Today, I'd like to announce that we are going to extend the Bicycle Sunday program throughout the months of July and August. That is not something we have done in the past. Normally, Bicycle Sunday begins the first Sunday of May. It goes through the month of May and the month of June. We take a break during the summertime months, and we reestablish it in September and October. And then it ends just before the Halloween season, and usually the weather starts to turn about that time. It's a little more difficult. Bicycle Sunday is not a competitive race environment. Bicycle Sunday is a recreational experience, and if you go out there, as I have, you're going to see couples, young and old, bicycling together. You'll see mom, dad, and the family bicycling together. And you'll see individuals that are bicycling because there's a pretty good run between White Plains in the north and Yonkers in the south that gives you a chance on a limited access highway to really go some distance both ways. The surface is obviously conducive to bicycling. You're not having to stop frequently because of traffic lights, and you have sort of there is a point in the middle of the route where traffic does go through where you might have to stop. But in general, it's a lovely time, 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By opening it up through the summertime, we're extending that recreation. Why are we doing that? Because there are certain parts of our recreation system that we're not able to open. We've had to make the decision to close and not conduct many of our ethnic festivals, which should have started in May, would have gone through the month of June into July. We've frozen them through the middle of July, and we're waiting to see what the state says and whether or not they allow for large gatherings, and they may by mid-July, but then they may not. So we know that between now and this point in time, we've had to cancel them. So we've canceled the ethnic festivals. We've canceled fireworks at Kensico on the 3rd of July, which is a traditional fireworks show, and on the 4th of July at Playland. Those are great experiences. In fact, as a person who lives on the Sound Shore, I've represented all those communities up and down the Post Road for years. On 4th of July, you could go there and you could see those are the Playland fireworks. Those are the Harbor Island fireworks. Those are the fireworks coming out of Larchmont Harbor. That's New Rochelle's. But you could see it one after the other on the water. It's tremendous. And there are equivalents elsewhere in the county along the Hudson River in the northern part of the county. So we've had to cancel the July 4th fireworks at Playland because we can't control what would be a crowd that would come out naturally to watch fireworks. They're all watching the fireworks, and they're clustered close together. And even if they're wearing masks, there's some jeopardy. Now, we can't control every possible combination of people. But where we have control over whether we sponsor an event or not, in this particular case, we're not able to do that. So we're hopeful maybe by the time Labor Day comes around, we'll be in good shape and we'll be able to have that. I know you may be hearing a little other sound in the background. I don't know if that's disturbing or not, but the bottom line is we are doing things that we can do to expand our recreational services, and in this case, we're expanding Bicycle Sunday for July and August, and we hope that provides a good recreation for the family, along with beaches, pools, our other hiking trails, and other things that we have open. So we're very happy to be able to do that. As we approach next Tuesday now, we're just a few days away from the transition from Phase 1 opening to Phase 2 opening. On the day after Memorial Day, as was celebrated on Monday, we went into Phase 1 of the governor's plan to open up businesses throughout the Hudson Valley. We're part of a 7-county region. We were able to open up construction projects, manufacturing, and people could go back to work within certain parameters, and we could have some curbside retail. Now, as of this coming Tuesday, all factors being equal, we continue to show reduction in the spread of the infection. We would open up to Phase 2 on Tuesday, June 9th, and that's really just a few days away from now as we're speaking on Friday, next Tuesday. What will open on that day? all retail businesses in Westchester County will open on Tuesday, assuming that they're ready to open, with the exception of those stores that are interior stores within a mall. In a closed mall environment, if you open out onto the inner portion of a mall, those are still closed because we're trying to avoid concentration of people inside the mall. Where you have an exterior entrance to the mall, we're across the street here from the Galleria, where Macy's faces out and JCPenney faces out, and there's an access to basement retail along the side of the mall. Those entities can open. And all of the other retail stores, all the strip malls that we have up and down Central Avenue, all of that can open. All of the mom and pop stores in downtown, every community you can think of, whatever businesses are in downtown Dobbs Ferry, downtown Ossining, the little cluster of businesses in Route 100 in Somers, what you have in downtown Peekskill. Any of those retail stores can open on Tuesday the 9th. We're also going to have an opening of administrative offices and professional services. So real estate offices can reopen. Accounting service offices can open. Corporate headquarters can open. Local governments can open, whether it's a municipal government, the county government, those offices can open. Law offices can open. Any of those administrative offices all can open on that date. Also, over the last week to 10 days, the governor has announced barbershops and beauty salons will reopen. For those of us who've been waiting to get another haircut, for those ladies who want to make sure they can get to the beauty salon, that will start opening as of this coming Tuesday the 9th. There are parameters that each business must meet. Our economic development team, under the direction of Bridget Gibbons and with some other players, are working to try to get those informations out to people, limited the number of people that can come into the establishment. Where people are in the establishment, where they need to stand when they check out so they're not clustered. What kind of a spacing if you have barbers' chairs so that, this isn't as close to that, and what the barber has to have on for PPE and what the customer has to have on for PPE. All of those things make it a new normal, but it does mean that those facilities are going to open. And we're very happy to hear that the governor has opened up outdoor dining for restaurants. For those of us who enjoy not just going out for a nice meal, but going out for the social element of a meal, whether it's one-on-one with one other individual or a small group of people, that will now open up on June 9th as well. Some businesses have a fixed outdoor area for eating and services. That's one thing. Many of our local governments are talking about how they can open up public space, street space, or driveway space that would not normally be permitted for restaurant purposes to allow a business to be able to put tables out and start to serve out in a public capacity. But the outdoor dining opens up on the 9th. The full restaurant opening is still part of Phase 3, which is scheduled for the 23rd, which is 2 weeks hence from Tuesday. And, of course, we're hopeful that, as we've seen already, that the governor and his key advisors will look at these factors and will err on the side of opening additional things as long as the metrics show that they're worthwhile. And I think we're showing that we're making steady progress on the virus, reducing the amount of infection, reducing the amount of hospitalization and deaths, so that we should be ready for that opening situation. So we point that out. That is coming Tuesday, June 9th. Let me also mention that on Tuesday, June 9th, across New York State, will be school board election days. Whatever school district you live in, if you have any questions about what's on the ballot in your district, call the local school clerk's offices. That's easily found online. They may not be sitting at a desk. They may have to call you back. But you should have received a mail ballot from your school district that will allow you to vote for school board trustees, assuming that there's some up in your community. If there's a competition or not a competition, there's usually a write-in component. And then also a yes or no on the school budget. Schools' budgets have to be approved by a public referendum. So if you live in a community, the school district votes are usually held in May. They were postponed because of COVID. They're now targeted as an all-mail proposition, so you should have looked in your mailbox if you're a registered voter to see if you have that. But the smartest thing to do, don't take generic advice from me here at the podium. Make it a point when this is over, if you're watching this to the end, call your local school district, find out, look in your mailbox, see if you got the ballot, complete the ballot, and put it in the mail as soon as you can. And if you have finished balloting and it doesn't put you out, drive it to the local, post office in your community and put it in the mail slot in the post office. You're sure it's going to get to your school board on time so that your vote will be counted in the school board elections. Those are coming up again this Tuesday. There'll be another round of elections coming up on the 23rd. And if there are any changes to any of these things, certainly they'll be announced. They may not be within our control, but we'll also talk about them. I want to highlight on two other topics before we go to questions that we're very grateful for a grant of $1.5 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation. We want to particularly credit the representatives that fight for us in Congress, in this case, United States Senator Chuck Schumer, United States Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. They were critical, as well as our Congress members, Nita Lowey, Elliot Engel, and Sean Patrick Maloney, but they were critical in getting us a grant of $1.5 million for us to purchase 2 replacement buses that will be all electric buses. We're in the process of converting our bus fleet for the Westchester B-Line bus system from the traditional diesel buses, which we're phasing out. We bought 78 buses 2 years ago to start the process. We have about 300 buses in the system altogether. A significant portion of them, we bought some buses along the way since then, some hybrids, some all-electric, with the idea that we can phase out the old diesel buses. And now, with that $1.5 million grant, we have 2 new buses. 2 buses are going out of service, 2005 vintage. They've expanded their lifespan. Pure diesel buses, the kind of bus, if you're standing on the corner when the bus goes by, you smell that the bus has been by. The exhaust is tremendous. These electric buses will not give off that smell. They'll draw power from a battery, not from fossil fuel. And so all of it is good environmental policy. Now, it takes time to transition the bus system, but we're making progress. We're very grateful for that, and we want to make sure that you know that we're grateful for that. Finally, we'll talk much more about this is coming, but I've mentioned that there are really 3 major public policy issues that we face right now. How we fight the public health pandemic, which is really the purpose of having this briefing each day. We add to it the municipal persons and a few other bits of information while we're together. But the main purpose is how we fight, this health pandemic. But the second piece right behind is the economic concerns that we have to go with it. So when we talk about opening businesses, phase 2, we're dealing with what we at the county level of government interact with the state government for. The state governor and the executive branch makes decisions about what opens up. State government also makes decisions. We're not involved in issues that have to do with unemployment compensation and other such policies. But we as a government have suffered a terrible blow to our budget. We have a $2.1 billion budget. It's funded in part by revenues that come from property taxes and sales taxes as the 2 main revenue streams. The property tax revenue stream at this point is relatively stable. It's about half, slightly under half. But the sales tax revenue stream has tanked dramatically. We estimate a loss of sales tax revenue anywhere from $100 million to $130 million this year. That is a huge loss of revenue. There are other revenue streams that are much smaller but are also impacted by this, and we're now in the process of looking to see exactly where we are, make a full assessment. We're going to share those assessments certainly with our workforce, the union representatives of the workforce, with our County Board of Legislators, as we try to get a scope on what's happening. 2 months ago, we started the process, knowing that we had a big gap, of taking a couple of fiscal policy moves that saved us $20 million. But when we're talking about a budget gap that could be as high as $120 million on the low end and as high as $200 million on the upper end, they're all variable ranges depending on what policies happen. The first $20 million are only the start of it. We're looking at some additional actions that we hope would have an impact, maybe to the tune of $40 to $50 million more in impact. We'll announce those when we're ready. It will still leave us with a significant gap. And when we talk about needing federal aid, there is some federal aid out there from the stimulus packages that have been passed already. How much of that is applicable to the costs of county government is yet to be determined. But we have not gotten into financial problem because we underestimated our expenses or because we let our expenses run wild. We're in a financial impact because the shutdown of the society economically has cost us revenue that had the society continued on, we would have been able to receive. But the shutdown of the society came because of the COVID virus outbreak. And if we had been foolish enough as a society not to shut ourselves down, no matter what people want to say, and they'll say anything, it's a free country, say what you want to say. Believe what you want to believe. But if we had not shut this society down at some level, the fatality numbers would have been exponentially higher than they are. And no matter how important our wealth is, nothing is more important than our health. Health first, wealth follows. So we have our challenges. We look to the federal government to be a partner. Just as you saw earlier today, our partnership with the town government is not required by law. We partner with the town government. We're a bigger government. We have certain regional responsibilities that the local government doesn't have, but we partner with them because it's the right thing to do, because we believe that the taxpayers and the residents of the county believe that we should work together and not just go our own separate ways and say, hey, good luck, town. Whatever happens to you, that's your problem. That's not our problem. We live in the same universe, in the same backyard, so we work with each other. Similarly, we will look to the federal government to be our partner, to help us, and the state governments and the other governments, as well as the individuals, because this financial problem is not just the storekeeper down the block or the major U.S. corporation. Industries like the airline industry, the hospitality, hotel industry, they are devastated by this. A whole industry nationwide has been devastated by this. And while our numbers may fluctuate on Wall Street based on the value of particular stocks, we know the number of people that have been laid off. We have more people on unemployment right now than we've seen at any point in time since the Great Depression. And so hopefully we'll work together to resolve that issue. I am by nature a confident person, by nature an optimist, but I'm also very realistic. I don't believe in having a big parade when something goes right, and I don't believe in going into any kind of deep, sullen depression when things go wrong. We pursue the right policies, we hope, every single day, and we do it appropriately and straightforwardly. But this is a serious health care issue. This is a serious economic issue. And the social justice issue is out there as well. We've indicated that so far Westchester County has been exemplary in terms of dealing with the civil component of this. We've seen no unnecessary unrest, looting, and things of that nature. We hope that will continue to be the case. But we still have a social justice issue that has to be addressed. And this is, as you've heard me say already, this is the test of our generation. Now we have to show that we're capable people as individuals and as groups of people that we can resolve these issues. And we will. We will resolve these issues. We will work forward. It will take us time, but we will resolve each of these three major crises, and we will come through this at the end of the day. With that, I'll open it up to any press questions. Catherine Chaffee, do you have any questions from the press?
We have one from David Cropper. So he would like to know, after facing some criticism for starting up Bicycle Sunday, has there been any indication this weekly event has led to any COVID spread?
No, I'd have to say there's no indication because we've dropped dramatically. If we go back and look at the numbers that we had a month ago, in the beginning of May, when we started this, we've had a steady decline in the number of total active cases. We've had a steady decline in the number of hospitalizations, and we've had a steady decline in the number of overnight fatalities. So if the proof is in the pudding, it's in the hard numbers. Now, if somebody said, well, give us an estimation a week after you opened up Bicycle Sunday, that might be premature. You might be looking at a set of statistics that don't really take into account the time it takes for an infection to be manifest, either for a person to find out that they're infected or for it to manifest itself as the disease and sickness and illness. But we now have a month to work with. And during that period of time, and if you recall, we opened our golf courses to some criticism prior to Bicycle Sunday, there's no basis now factually to do that. For David or any other press person, we're happy to release the statistics that were in force the day that we started Bicycle Sunday and compare them to the statistics that we have today. You can compare those numbers side by side, total number of positives, total number of people that have gone through the incubation period, active cases, hospitalization, and you can draw your own judgment. I think the criticism at the time might have been well-meaning, but it was misplaced. I said so at the time, and so far the numbers have proven me to be correct. Not because I'm a genius, but because we believed that the natural functioning of a bicycle recreation would not lend itself to the spread. If we were allowing rugby matches, if we were allowing stadium filled with people watching, a sporting event, then we might have spread, we might have had an increase in spread, but we have not, and we're happy to share the hard statistics if that's helpful in the compilation of the story. Are there any other questions from the press? We invite anyone from the press who's watching. You're welcome to give Catherine Chaffee, our Director of Communication, a call, 995-2932, or communicate with her online, and we'll be happy to answer any questions offline. We do not normally do these updates on Saturdays and Sundays. We'll be back on Monday. We'll be back at 11 o'clock for our COVID conversations in the morning. Myself and Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins will share those duties during the course of the week. And then I'll be back in the afternoon at 2 o'clock for this update, statistics. We'll have If we do it here, we'll have somebody from one of the municipalities join us. We will be out in the field this week into certain communities as we do different tasks to highlight the local officials. We also expect next week to have as a guest State Controller Tom DiNapoli, who will be talking with us on one of the days next week. I think it's scheduled for Tuesday, but we'll see as we get closer. And we always appreciate having Tom with us to talk about some of the issues and how it affects them. With that, we appreciate your courtesy. We appreciate watching. We hope you have a good, safe weekend. Do enjoy the recreation that's open, but do it responsibly. Make sure we social distance. Make sure we wear masks. It's not forever. It's just to get us through this crisis, and we will get through this crisis. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe.